Hello and welcome to PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Ian Hartitz. Happy divisional round. Hope you guys enjoyed that wild card action. Won all sorts of money in whatever fantasy and gambling adventures you set your heart on. But as always, we're on to the next round. Core agenda for today. I want to quickly go through some key wildcard usage takeaways and then look ahead to some 2022 ranking goodness. Got a trio on here today. I'm joined by, a regular here, Dwayne "The Rock" McFarland, but also PFF rankings expert, the resident GOAT himself, Nathan Jahnke. Gentlemen, how's it going? Dwayne, you can say something first.
I'm doing great, man. Getting to be on here with Jahnke is always a pleasure. We got to get him here more.
Kings stay freaking kings. Nathan, I feel like I mentioned you on almost like every Sunday night pod that Dwayne and I did because, we're out there. Sometimes the grind's getting to you. It's been months of this shit. And then I always look, and after every single primetime game, every single one of the year for who knows how many years, you're always putting out the next fancy information. You're still doing it throughout the playoffs, man. I'm not sure there's a harder worker, a more plugged in man in the industry than yourself. Thank you for coming on, my friend.
Oh, yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. Always enjoy grinding, watching the games, and getting all the snap counts out and all the usage information so everyone is ready for the next week.
We watch the games. We try to find the data that shows you what we were just watching. That's the happy marriage between film and analytics that nobody wants to embrace, but we will, because why not? As always, here on this Tuesday edition, and as always, it's been the plan last few weeks. Don't freaking twist my words, everyone. But we're going to go through just some of the key usage takeaways from the remaining teams. As fun as it might be to go through what happened with the Patriots, the Cowboys, and all that, not really helping us for this week. So we're going to ignore them. Gentlemen, starting things off, we did see some interesting stuff from the Buffalo Bills. Now, it's been the Devin Singletary show for the better part of the last 6 weeks, and that continued to really come to fruition. 86% snaps. He is staying as the true workhorse in this backfield. Wide receivers where things got a little bit more interesting. Now, obviously, a lot of blowout game script in this one, but through 3 quarters, the routes for these wide receivers, Stephon Diggs at 23, Gabriel Davis 18, Emmanuel Sanders 16, Isaiah McKenzie 12, and 5th place Cole Beasley with 8. Dwayne, I know before last week, we were saying Gabe Davis over Emmanuel Sanders, regardless of the chance that their routes could be split. But to see Beasley really taking this big of a back seat is surprising, maybe warranted. Isaiah McKenzie's been playing great ball, but at this point, man, DFS, any remaining just showdown slates, whatever the hell you're trying to do in fantasy-wise, I think it needs to be Diggs 1, Gabriel Davis here from here on out.
Yeah. Sanders, really the biggest problem with bringing Sanders back was the impact that it did have to Davis, though, right? We had Davis at 92% of the routes, 96% of the routes. Now he's at 65%. So before the first time Emmanuel Sanders had come back from injury, Gabe Davis missed with COVID-19. So we weren't for sure what this would really look like. And so it is really a rotation. So I agree that Davis is second. He is their favorite player behind Diggs against man coverage. He does get some of the deeper routes. So you get more air yards out of Davis on less shots. But Emmanuel Sanders was out there plenty. So it's definitely a hit to Gabriel Davis's stock. Now it's clearly Diggs is the one because he's on the field the most. Knox is on the field. Actually Knox is the one that's out there the absolute most, but it's he and Diggs that are out there pretty much every snap. And then you have Sanders, then you got Cole Beasley, you got Isaiah McKenzie, all rotating. Beasley's routes went from 64%, 66% down to 29%. And this is a guy that used to, we could depend on a good game, he'd be between 70 and 80%. But McKenzie really does seem to have carved out, a role. And specifically, I think they went back to him a lot in this game because of how well he did against the Patriots the first time. And he was just a problem for their slot corner with his speed.
Dude is explosive as hell when he's out there. Cincinnati Bengals, business as usual, really throughout the entire offense. Don't need to discuss them. 49ers, though, look, it has been a banged-up season for Elijah Mitchell. When he's been out there, he's been the guy. But even later in the year, we had concerns if he was even going to be out there for Week 18. He did come through in the wild card round, though, 71% snaps and 27 carries. Debo was the only other non-QB with a carry, and he had 10. Nathan, we got the big dog. Derrick Henry's coming back this week. I think he's going to be awfully difficult to keep out of that RB1 spot, and just kind of looking at the overall touch projections, I think he would have to be one. But Elijah Mitchell, man, it's hard to fade anyone getting 20 plus carries the way he has in the Shanny scheme.
Yeah, I think he's definitely going to be one of the most reliable backs that you can count on this upcoming week, just because his usage just doesn't change at all. He's the first and second down back. The only thing that does change is the third down back. Kyle Juszczyk was the full third down back. So if you like props and receiving, those are usually pretty low, and he's been the guy this past week, so I like him there. But Mitchell, you can count on him to see double-digit carries, and there's so many backfields that we'll be talking about or have talked about where there's going to be a rotation of multiple players. We don't know exactly what will happen due to injury. He's probably one of the 2 or 3 safest bets.
Yeah, Devo's pretty much taken over all the long down and distance in the 2-minute offense. But to Nathan's point, like Elijah Mitchell never had that really. It was like one game in the season where we caught a blip of it right before he got hurt. We're like, oh my God, it's happening. And then, he got hurt. So
I think we'll probably touch on him a little bit more in our 2022 ranks, but this backfield is going to really be one to watch. Both Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson are unrestricted free agents. JaMychal Hasty is an exclusive rights free agent. I'm not saying that Mitchell's not going to just come back and have the starting job. I think he's probably earned it. 207 carries and 20 targets without a single drop or fumble this year. The yards after contact numbers are bonkers as well. Like, he probably has just earned the job outright. But if we can take Mostert, Wilson, maybe even Hasty out of the equation, Mitchell is going to be awfully difficult to keep out of that top 12 ahead of next year. With the Chiefs, Jerick McKinnon, 78% snaps, Darrell Williams is 12, and Derek Gore at 9%. So it's unclear a little bit if this was the plan going in or if that just ridiculous Mecole Hardman, Darrell Williams fumble ended up leading Darrell to get on the bench. Since then, though, we've had Patrick Mahomes call McKinnon a playmaker. And, it seems like all things are pointing up for Jerick. So, Dwayne, I imagine this is incredibly frustrating for Kyle Shanahan to watch. He did sign up to give Jerick 4 years, $30 million not that long ago. And to Jerick's credit, he did look like, as Mahomes said, a playmaker out there. Do you think this is what we're seeing moving forward? Is Jerick the guy, or is this maybe a situation where Darrell wasn't 100%, had an early game miscue, maybe more 50-50 here in the divisional round and beyond?
Yeah, I don't necessarily trust it. I do think Darrell Williams playing, with the toe injury. You mentioned the fumble. We're going to get Clyde Edwards-Helaire out, but I do think that Jerick McKinnon, like watching this game, gives them something that the other two don't. It's like Patrick Mahomes said, he is a playmaker. If you look at this last week, 33% of his carries went for 10 yards or more. He has a 2.31 yards per route run. So, he's just doing some things that the other two don't do. Like the other two, let's face it, at this point, Edwards-Helaire, we've talked about it a couple of times. Like, he's a nice player, but it's not a super explosive player. He can make guys miss, but he doesn't break long runs. He hasn't been what we thought he would be in the receiving game, which is really, that was the idea for McKinnon, right? When they first brought him on, like early in the season, and even when we were doing the utilization reports, like he was the guy getting the 2-minute offense. They just weren't using it, a ton. They weren't running at breakneck speed, using that a lot. So with McKinnon, I think we've known it's always been there. It's just been really a matter of time for him getting his opportunity. However, moving forward, I think it will be more of a split. My thought is, though, I think McKinnon did enough in this game to maybe earn some run, which means once you get Edwards-Helaire back, and if you have Darrell Williams healthy with his toe, we could really have a 3-way committee now.
Nathan, the kind of recurring theme Dwayne and I have in this podcast is that we don't like to say like gun to our head, because that sets a negative vibe.
Ian does like to say that, Nathan, but he tries to be nice about it, but he can't stop.
I've been trying to get better, so now it's unfortunately gotten worse. And now the equation is a Girl Scout walking to your door, pretends to sell you cookies, but nope, there's that gun again, and it's out your head. So Nathan, if Clyde Edwards-Helaire is back this week, how would you rank him versus McKinnon versus Darrell just for the divisional round?
A lot of it will depend on how much they're practicing, see how the practice reports go. McKinnon, because he's healthy, is the pack that I'd probably have at the top right now. But I am worried it'll look similar to, coincidentally, last time they played the Bills, where like every couple plays, one of those backs was coming off the field, all three of them. None of them saw 50% of the offensive snaps. And it could be something where they just give all three a try in the first quarter. Whoever has the hot hand gets the ball the most of the rest of the way. So I probably don't want to heavily rely on any of those three, but I'd probably be willing to have at least a little bit of all three of them here and there.
The veteran response from Nathan right there. Let's see the practice reports before we make any, extreme, predictions going on here. If I'm ever on like radio or something like that, and I'm like just caught off guard, just start talking about like players that are out, injuries, or like defensive matchups, that everyone's just like, yeah, sure, sounds good to me. But Nathan, I think you are right. We do need to see what Clyde's going to be at. And, I always say with those shoulder and rib injuries, especially with a running back, like if you're going to be playing through that, I think it's pretty reasonable to expect you're not going to be running through these monsters at the line of scrimmage, maybe as well as you would with a fully healthy body. Last two situations, we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers without Leonard Fournette in the picture. Giovanni Bernard returning from IR, 49% snaps, 13 carries and 7 targets. And then we had Keyshawn Vaughn, who Bruce Arians is now pulling the I've always loved Keyshawn Vaughn card. What are you guys talking about? You're now seeing what I've always known. 49% snaps, 17 carries, and 2 targets. So, Dwayne, we saw the Fournette show this year. When he is out there, he legit has a role on par with the top 4, top 5 most used backs in the NFL. But if he is going to stay out, this is as split as the backfield as, we're going to see outside of Denver. How are you feeling about Gio versus Keyshawn in a game that, we're not expecting to field quite the same sort of extreme positive game script as Tampa Bay had last week?
Yeah, my guess is we get Fournette this week, but we'll have to wait. We'll have to see what they say, during practice this week. But with Keyshawn, he's the early down back. Like it's what we projected, for the last 2 games that he's played. So he's had that role. The only difference is Gio actually carved out even a little bit more than just the passing down role. He handled all of the long down and distance, 89% of it, 100% of the 2-minute offense. But Gio also snuck out there for 100% of the short down and distance, right? So that's whenever you got 1 or 2 yards to go, it's 3rd or 4th down. He actually sniped a touchdown that way. It was the first rushing touchdown of the game. So his role is a little wider than what we saw early in the season when Gio was, really sharing with Fournette. It was Fournette truly getting 55 to 65% of the work, and then Gio seeing maybe 30%. Now with Keyshawn Vaughn, it is truly more of a 50-50 split. My bigger concern is with Bernard. We know he really is a good passing down back, and I think we were all kind of surprised like how limited his role actually was this season. So I do wonder if this hampers Fournette a little bit in the passing game, because whenever Fournette really took off, like he had taken off before and he had some really good finishes, but once he just became rock solid was once Gio was out of that passing down role. And we just knew Fournette was not only going to get all of the early down work, but we knew he would get all of that passing offense work as well. So I think that's something to keep an eye on. Fournette's still going to be one of the top 3 backs if he's active. We have to assume that, but Gio could eat in a little bit to what he's been doing.
And with the passing game, we know it's Mike Evans, Rob Gronkowski, clear-cut top 2 guys. After that's where it gets interesting. We had Tyler Johnson playing 77% of the snaps, and that was the only other full-time wide receiver and tight end. I use full-time as like more than 50% snaps because Brashad Perryman, 49%, Cam Brate, 36%, O.J. Howard, 29%, and Scotty Miller, 26%, all splitting time. I apologize to anyone out there that had the Scotty Miller over 8.5 reception yard prop finishing with just 8. That was brutal. I saw the whole Pat McAfee show and followers just really tilting out that one throughout the Sunday. But Nathan, Evans had 10 targets. Giovanni Bernard had 7. Gronk had 6. Nobody else had over 3. I think it's fair to assume that those guys, at least Evans and Gronk, will continue to be the top 2 most featured options in the passing game. Beyond that, though, which of these wide receivers, tight ends, do you think has the best chance at maybe emerging as something here in the future weeks? We could also see Cyril Grayson back at some point. We don't really know how that hammy's feeling right now, though.
I think it's probably Johnson just because he was the number 2 wide receiver. He played the vast majority of snaps. I think even if Grayson does come back, Johnson will still have a major role in this offense. I do think this last game we saw a lot more of the backup tight ends because of the game script. They were just dominating, so they didn't need 3 wide receiver sets. They started the game consistently having 3 on the field and then just didn't need Perriman the rest of the way. So I'm guessing they will not have a 30 or so point lead around halftime in this upcoming game. So I think we will see a lot more 3 wide receiver sets, which could mean Perriman would see a lot more playing time. But even then, I'm having a hard time trusting any of them since they'll just throw to Evans and Gronk a ton and run the ball.
Finally, we got some Los Angeles Rams updates. Wide receiver room, we get it. Cooper Kupp, every snap, Kings stay Kings. But we did see OBJ and Van Jefferson back to really playing equally as the number 2, number 3 receivers. And Ben Skowronek, I'm good at pronunciation, people. I'm just here doing my job, just 12% of the snaps. So not that we were necessarily, getting behind Skowronek as someone to really feature in fantasy, but I think it's good for Van Jefferson more than anything else. Dwayne, the real headline story here, though, was the performance by Cam Akers. 53% of the snaps to Sony's 40%. Akers had 17 carries, 2 targets. Sony, 13 carries, Bigger story, Akers looked freaking good doing so out there. I mean, whether it's, jumping over guys, running over guys, catching the ball, like the only real mistake he made was not being able to come down with that deep ball that was thrown pretty well, but he didn't think it was kind of coming to him. So overall thoughts on the Cam Akers performance and whether or not like he needs to be someone just prioritize here moving forward, at least in these next few rounds, because man, he sure looks like the Rams RB1 right now.
Yeah, and as the game went on, they just phased Sony out more. It's almost like Sony started the game, Cam Akers came in and played, and they're like, oh my God, like how good he looks. Yeah. If you look at the second half, he handled 63% of the snaps. He was out there for 69% of the routes. So, I mean, yeah, he could be a near every down back as soon as next week. Like, I think we have to be cautious because he is still coming back from the injury and they may have some sort of a cap on it. But I thought it was interesting to see them just get him more and more involved as the game went on. And my guess is he was over there, probably doing a little bit some lobbying like of his own to make sure he was getting on the field. But he looked a lot better than Sony Michel. Like he just looked more explosive. He looked more decisive. He looked more powerful. He looked more everything. And that's nothing against Michel. Like Michel's done a nice job, but we've talked about this on the show a couple of times. Like the utilization's been there, but Sony hasn't really looked great. He's looked fine. I thought Akers last night showed us what, the Rams really hope that their rushing attack can look like. So I expect to see even more potentially next week from him. Let's see if he got to 65% of the snaps. I mean, at that point, like he's got to be ranked in the top 5 next weekend.
And we will get to Cam Akers' 2022 ranks in just a second. If you want more information on what happened in that wildcard round, you can check out both Dwayne and Nathan's work on PFF.com. Again, Nathan has literally immediate fantasy football takeaways from every game you're going to find out there. So, when Sunday night hits, you want those snap counts, you want to know who's the injury replacement going to be, please go find Nathan's work. And he always is posting that on Twitter at PFF_Nate Jahnke, and also Dwayne's worldwide famous, critically acclaimed, whatever the hell you want to call it, utilization report continues to be updated throughout the playoffs. Also want to invite you all, if you're trying to get some skin in the game, to download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code PFF and get 56-1 odds on any NFL team. You can bet just $5 to win $280 in free bets. If your team wins, that's promo code PFF for 56-1 odds at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Just know you must be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, Pennsylvania. Only new customers, only minimum $5 deposit with no wage required, one per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sport for details. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. And also, leading into our next segment, 2022 fantasy football, it's around the corner. We're going to have awesome dynasty content for you guys. Really already do have it, but we're going to have an awesome unveiling of some special stuff after the Super Bowl. Best ball season's fast around the corner. We never take time off here at PFF Fantasy. And with that, you can use 25% off any PFF subscription if you use code FANTASY to get all that large article content, our betting dashboards, our rankings, our prop tool, NFL draft guide, that and so much more. Again, support the pod and use promo code FANTASY for 25% off any. So back to Nathan and Dwayne, who are savages. You guys already have your top 250 2022 ranks. Wow. Good for you guys. Let's talk about it. So I'm going to sit here as someone that doesn't have my ranks done and just really criticize the work you guys have put in there to try to even that out. So again, we just finished talking about Cam Akers, and everyone can find your ranks on PFF.com as always. So really with Akers, based on what we've seen, based on what we know about Achilles, and based on what we know about Sean McVay, are we more confident than ever right now slotting him in as the Rams RB1 for 2022? It sure seemed like going into the year, he had the leg up on Darrell Henderson. Sony Michel is an unrestricted free agent. Like Dwayne, it's going to be hard to keep him out of that top 12, top 15, particularly if we see next week that sort of, 60 to 70 featured back snap rate that we were just talking about.
Yeah, I have him at 15 heading into next season, but that was actually before watching this past game and like how good he already looks. So yeah, it's going to be tough. He'll probably move up some. Like right now I've got Leonard Fournette and DeAndre Swift just above him, but Fournette obviously needs to return to the Bucs. You also need Tom Brady to return the Bucs. So with all these situations, I'm sure we'll kind of throw out some caveats. There's a lot of things that could still happen with these players. But with Akers, assuming the Rams don't spend draft capital on another back, yeah, I would feel pretty good just because we've seen Sony take over the backfield already from Darrell Henderson. So if Sony's gone, and Cam looks as good as he does, like I feel very confident that Cam Akers will really lead the backfield next year. We won't see near as much of Darrell Henderson. He could really operate more as the passing down back, which is what really McVay's hinted at, like over the last couple of weeks, even whenever, they've been talking about Akers, been talking about Michelle, he continues to bring up Henderson, but each time really specifically talking about a receiving role, which, Henderson's actually he's made a few nice plays in the receiving game this season. So yeah, I'm thinking 60 to 70% of the work next year just right now, very early, is I would put all that going to Cam Akers. And yeah, you have a top 5 offense. Who doesn't want, a 70% workhorse and a top 5 offense? I'll have to research the Achilles thing some more. Honestly, like I've always just, I guess because Achilles before has always just been like such really almost like felt like a death knell. I've never researched it that deep. But to see what Akers is doing this soon, like that's the biggest thing. We already get to see him, right? We don't have to wait. And what's he going to look like in the preseason? We're already getting to see it right now, which gives me so much more confidence.
Credit to D'Onta Foreman coming back. I know it took him more than a year to do so, but he's come back and looked really fairly good with Tennessee. CJ Uzomah and OJ Howard, different positions, but they came back from the Achilles in 1 year. Just let's look at the examples and kind of flush through it this offseason, because sometimes with this, like how many Achilles injuries to feature backs have we really seen in the first place? Is every running back being, done with an Achilles, like 5 or 6 players? Something to keep in mind, something we will continue to talk about. Nathan, you're even higher on Cam, have him ranked as your RB9 behind Antonio Gibson, RB8, Christian McCaffrey, RB7. My question for you is like, how much higher would Akers even be on this list if he just had no injury concerns? Because man, like he's already top 10. He's already up there for us, probably using a high 2nd round pick on him.
Yeah, probably my biggest concern is more so still Darrell Henderson than Akers' injury itself. I think Akers, given another full offseason to recover while he's playing now, I'm not too concerned about him next year. But Henderson has started each of the past 2 seasons very hot. He's been a top 3 running back. If you look at just the first half of each of the past 2 seasons, he just hasn't been able to finish the seasons. He hasn't really done anything the end of this year, the end of last year. So I could still see Henderson being a factor in the backfield and at least competing, but I don't see Henderson staying healthy. So the nice thing about it is, like, sometimes when we're talking about these running back splits, it'll be like with the Broncos, it was very consistently 50-50 throughout the season. I could see there being a couple weeks where Akers isn't worth starting, but then the rest of the weeks he's going to be seeing 80% maybe of the snaps and be a surefire top 10, top 15 running back. So even though it'll be similar percentages, there'll be clear weeks where he's going to be a top guy, which makes him very valuable.
What a world where Akers is going to be a year removed from an Achilles, and we actually have more injury concerns about the other running back involved in the backfield. Dwayne, you're getting all kinds of, we'll call it love last week with your early ranks, having Javonte Williams RB2, Antonio Gibson, I believe, RB4. Nathan, a little more chill, and this all comes down to projected J.D. McKissic and Melvin Gordon leaving town, which I know was what Dwayne had built into those. Sometimes everyone, before you just want to scream on Twitter, you can actually click that article, and it usually explains the reasoning and rationale going behind it. Just, something I've kind of picked up on the old internet over the years. Either way, though, Nathan has Gibson RB8, Williams RB10. We're talking about high-end RB1 types either way. And guys, like, just kind of looking at this and looking at the running back position as a whole, guys like Dalvin, McCaffrey, Zeke, Henry, getting up there. We've had the years of them. We've seen them be these high-end RB1s, but the mileage is getting there. And if we can have Gibson and Williams with these clean backfields, no McKissic, no Gordon, I just wonder, like, should we just really prioritize these guys over the older running backs? Because, man, you look at Javonte, he's been a split committee, even going back to North Carolina. Gibson, obviously, wide receiver, could convert coming out of Memphis. Like, Dwayne, I feel like maybe we should just kind of hitch our wagon to these guys, circle them, and say, hey, out of these top 10 running backs, like, there's reasons to feel good about all of them, but let's just take the younger ones if all the touches are equal.
Right. That's where I'm at, like with Williams. I mean, looking, and again, it is assuming that Melvin Gordon is gone. So if Melvin Gordon re-signs with the team, that obviously is going to impact Javonte Williams, but it's not going to, like, he'll definitely move down. I'm not going to get crazy with it, though, because, I mean, when you look at Melvin Gordon and you look at the rushing load that he's handled, over the last several years, he'll be entering the season with 1,549 cumulative rushing attempts. Derrick Henry will be at 1,592. Zeke will be at 1,778. So those are your top three. And really, I had Henry and Elliott all ranked lower this season because of coming into the year. Like we've just seen that running backs that have been in the league 5 or more years that are at those workloads, look, eventually they're going to start to slow down. So I don't know why it feels like such rocket science to people. We've seen it time and time again with guys like Todd Gurley. So I want to be a step ahead of these things. And it's not to say, like, Henry was really the reason, like, people were giving me so much Ian quote unquote love, so I think I was on every Tennessee Titans message board, so and it wasn't anything to do with hating on Henry. And in fact, like, even in the article, I throw out that, look, Henry's range of outcomes on the upside are still so high. I don't blame people. Like, if you want to take Henry early, I just don't feel like you're going to have to do it. So some of this also doesn't come back to players. It starts to come down to, how do all these players fit together in the first and second round? And how do we help you really create the best strategy for winning in fantasy football? And part of winning is trying to avoid injuries. So if I feel like I don't have to have Derrick Henry to win the whole league, and there's an option B that I could take that's going to give me similar outcomes, maybe even a slightly lower ceiling, but I just feel better. Like, I know this person's probably not going to hit the wall. They're going to have their own risk. Everybody carries their own risk. Like, that's just where I come in with Henry. And I probably will be lower than him on him than anybody, like, next season. Like, I've got him at 8 right now. But again, like, I don't blame someone if they want to take him early, because I know the upside is there. He's in the perfect offense, willing to run the ball all the time. But as far as Javonte Williams goes, I am assuming, like we mentioned, that Melvin Gordon is gone. And it's just like you and I have talked about it multiple times on the pod this week, Ian. But for Williams, like, missed tackles forced per attempt, 0.31. That's first in the NFL. Yards after contact, 3.42. Fifth in the NFL. Explosive run rate. Those are carries of 10 plus yards, 12.3. That's 11th in the NFL. So,
he's a baller. He's a freaking baller.
And if we go to the games where he doesn't, he's only had a couple, but where he didn't have Melvin Gordon, we clearly saw what he can be. The other thing I really love about Javonte Williams is, even though he's been splitting time with Melvin Gordon, a lot of times what we see with rookies is they shield them from certain roles, which tells us the coaches are not comfortable with them yet, right? They're not ready for them to take that role. But like what Nathan was talking about earlier with Williams, with Gordon, it truly has been a split almost down the middle. And we've seen Williams do everything. So he got to play on long down and distance. He played 48% of that. So those are situations where, the defense is basically going to play man coverage and they're going to blitz your quarterback. And they trusted Williams in that role. The 2-minute offense, which you have to be able to think quick on your feet. You got to know the playbook, 52% of that. So it wasn't like they kept him away from those roles. If they had, that would worry me a little, because we have seen guys not able to take that role over early in their career, Ronald Jones, and they never were able to. Right. So that would have worried me. But to see him be able to do that, plus how effective he was on top of everything, only going to be 22 years old going into next season, I could bring him down a little bit. He has nowhere, he can't go up any further because he can't pass Jonathan Taylor in my ranks. So yeah, RB2 is where I have him, but like, he's in my top tier. Right. So really there's a tier of 4 or 5 guys I have together. Javonte Williams is in it for sure.
Nathan, you have Henry in the top 5, which means you're probably getting a little bit less. Again, we're calling this Twitter love than what Dwayne's been dealing with. So I'll say this, Dwayne, I think everything he says is fine. Yeah, I think that's smart the way you put it. We're really the drafts, because like, these are the guys that you're going to be deciding between. So even if you want to move Henry a little bit lower than you might just, if you were just going pure based on projections, we do want to try to make it clear which guys we are going for. But I want people to be careful about why we're fading Henry, because the narrative this year was like, oh, Henry just had over 400 touches in 2020. Of course he was going to bust in 2021, and they just don't even put together that Henry also had over 400 touches in 2019 and then balled the hell out in 2020. So Nathan, in your experience, as you're doing your ranking and stuff, how much stock do you put into just pure workload touch count metrics? Because I do think it holds some value, but at the same time, predicting injuries, predicting a fall off, it can be a tough game. And if the worst thing we can say about a player is like, he'll probably get hurt, that's probably not a good enough reason to simply fade him.
Oh, yeah, I definitely take that into account a little bit in terms of just like age curves in general. We expect the youngest players to get a little better. We expect players middle, later of their career to get a little worse. And that's the reason I have Henry at running back 4 rather than running back 1 or 2 is Henry was the clear top running back for the first half of the season before getting injured. And
I should have taken your approach, Nathan. I still would have got my point across, and it would have saved me about 5,000 hate emails. I'm actually watching out for a Girl Scout right now, Ian. Show up at any moment.
Careful, man.
Feel like Titans gear on.
But even the other running backs we were talking about, Gibson and Williams, for me, it's just a risk assessment at this point. Yeah, they might not have Gordon or McKissick, but they're probably going to bring in some other running back to be the backup if it's not those two. And it's just wondering who those players are. Roughly half the teams in the league draft a running back each year. And like we saw with the Saints this year, Alvin Kamara had 20 plus touches a game. Then once they get Mark Ingram, his touches go down significantly. So nothing changed about one of the best backs in the league. It was just they were more confident in his backup, so they were able to rotate him more. So I think a lot just has to do not so much with how talented they are, because they are both very talented. It's whoever is going to be that number 2 guy.
Very
and
fair.
I think those are all huge points. Like, and to your point, Ian, like if people read the article, this says this is based on where things are to get today. Like we're going to get new, like if you think about Denver, think how many new things they're probably going to get. They're going to get a new coaching staff. They're going to get a new quarterback, right? We still got free agents they could sign. We still got to go through the draft. Like, they're potentially like, I don't see how quarterback could get worse, but like all 3 other things could actually be bad things for Williams, right? So he could move down. So I will say Melvin Gordon was not as washed as what people thought coming into the season. So I faded Javonte Williams this offseason. And see, that's the thing I like to remind people. It's like when people get really upset at you, I was like, hey, like I told you to take Joe Mixon this last year and no one else wanted you to. And now next year I'm telling you, you need to tap the brakes a little bit. Well, there's a reason for that, right? It's not just because I want to have a new player on the list. It's really just based, on the research, like some of the stuff like what Nathan's talking about. But for me, with Williams, there are a lot of things that could go wrong and he could have to move down. So these are all based, this is based on a quarterback upgrade, right? And the fact that we don't get any big signing.
And trying to hedge for himself. I don't know about you guys. I'm getting every ranking right this year, so you can keep expecting not to get him, Dwayne. That's just for you. All right, I've been pretty nice to both of you so far, but let's get antsy. Let's start calling each other bad names and shit, because Michael Carter, my goodness. Nathan, RB12. Dwayne, RB25. That's a difference. That's a marketable difference, gentlemen. Dwayne, why are you out on Michael Carter, who on a per touch, not per rush attempt basis, was actually superior than our friend Javonte Williams in forcing missed tackles?
Yeah, I mean, I am not out on Michael Carter by any means. Michael Carter is.
You sure about that?
He's just not the same build. I don't expect him to ever be a 70%, 60. I don't think his range of outcomes includes getting 60 to 70% of the touches. I think Javonte Williams' range of outcomes does include that. I do like the offense that he's in, but I'm also very scared about his quarterback. I don't see any way there's an upgrade. It's a rookie, right? They just spent a high round pick on him. So I'm worried about what is Zach Wilson going to mean for that offense. I do think you're going to see the Jets make several moves this offseason that you'll see will move them closer and closer to trying to look more like the 49ers offense. You've got the former, the OC came from the 49ers. Obviously Saleh came from the 49ers. They need tight ends. They need fullbacks. They don't have any of the things you need to run like this really heavy pound the ball offense. So I do think that Carter is going to be a factor next year. But the other problem is he doesn't have very much draft capital. It just puts him at more risk. Anything can really go wrong for Carter. Now, if he gets through and they don't bring on anybody, that has a higher draft grade, like I'm more worried. I think he's less insulated than Javonte Williams, like for me. But I do love Carter. I love everything that we saw from him. He was a guy that I drafted a ton this past year. Like once you got to round like 9 and 10, he was the guy I much rather drafted than Javonte this past year, just based on, what the price tag was. So we'll see what happens with ADP. I do like him. I think he's a guy that could move up. So I was hoping like 25 wasn't meant to be disrespectful, right? He's still above like Connor, Miles Sanders, Kareem Hunt, Damian Harris, AJ Dillon, a lot of names that people are going to be on for next year. I just couldn't get him up into that next tier yet.
to Dwayne's point, the draft capital really does make a big difference. And you can go back to 2010. The only, 6 running backs that were not drafted in the top 3 rounds, so, a day 1 or day 2 pick, that went on to post even top 24 PPR production were Roy Halou, Alfred Morris, Zach Stacy, Jordan Howard, Philip Lindsay, or James Robinson. So unless Shanahan is your head coach, or if you just got into a just depleted depth chart, good chance you're not going to be putting up massive numbers. Now, with Carter, to Dwayne's point, there is a chance for things to break his way. Tevin Coleman is an unrestricted free agent. There's Ty Johnson. There's Austin Walter. There's a bunch of guys that don't really stack up as true big-time competition for Carter. Nathan, it seems like, again, we need some factors to go our way, but if Carter is going to be the number 1 guy in New York, we've seen the James Robinsons of the world really just, still be able to put up good numbers in bad offenses thanks to volume. He should have that volume.
Yeah, I think he will. In the middle of this season, we saw about a 5-game stretch. He was seeing upwards of 70% of the offensive snaps for a game or two. He was RB5 over that 5-game stretch, and then injuries started to take their toll on his season. So I think we did see in the middle of this season him starting to see this RB1 potential. And like we were saying, the coaching staff comes from San Francisco. They like having running backs who see the majority of the work. We're seeing that with Elijah Mitchell now in San Francisco. But Carter can also catch the ball, which I think is a huge factor. My rankings, at least, were based on PPR. So that also factors in. So I can see him catching the ball a lot, running a lot. And I am hopeful that the offense does get better. I do think Zach Wilson will improve. So just the general Jets offense performing better next year factors into me having them this high, and that if the offense does better, that's more red zone opportunities, that's more touchdowns, and that's something that him and the Jets offense in general this past year were lacking.
Hey, Ian, real quick, just a quick shout out. So Tej from our team, if folks want to read more about some of the stuff we're talking about, there's actually an article he did this last offseason. It's called Do NFL Running Backs Regress? Facts and Fiction. He breaks down a lot of these concepts we're talking about, like when do backs typically drop off? Like what are the workloads? How does their draft capital and impact them? Like everything we're talking about, he goes through like 5 different things. I think he does a really good job of like providing the data, but also just simplifying it. So I just encourage folks to go check that out because it's a component of really how I'm thinking about all these players.
Tej always bringing some great stuff to the table. Biggest Matthew Stafford fan in the world, believe it or not. You can find him on Twitter at TejFB Analytics. Truly a great follow. I just hate that he is helping the Michigan football team beat my Buckeyes. Other than that, great guy. All right, guys, last running back question here. This Cardinals running back room, I got an article coming out in a couple of days where I'm looking at kind of like, I counted 13 like main free agency situations where these backfields, are going to be toss and turn one way or another. And we're going to kind of look at this in a couple months and be like, okay, here's now the guy we need to go after. We don't know who that's going to be yet, though. Both James Conner and Chase Edmonds are unrestricted free agents. Now, if they're both back, I'm pretty sure we would all kind of agree, they'll be kind of around that RB2 borderline, maybe top 24, but probably not top 15 for either guy, anticipating more of the same being that split backfield. But as we've seen, these guys, and really any running back, Cliff Kingsbury, David Johnson, Kenyon Drake, if he is okay giving one single rusher the full lion's share of the workload, they've been producing. And I know mobile quarterbacks historically don't help. Kyler's been a little bit of an exception. In the Kyler Kingsbury era, Cardinals running backs are 17th in targets, and they're actually 4th in carries inside the 5-yard line. And you kind of combine that with Kingsbury being willing to give the one featured running back these like 80% plus snap rolls. It's been a fantasy-friendly role. So, Nathan, you have Michael Carter as your RB12. Dwayne, you have DeAndre Swift. If one of Conner or Edmonds, so I don't even care which one, but if one of them is the last remaining guy, let's say they just, have Eno and then like a 7th round running back, they also tack on there. Would you be willing to put either starting Cardinals running back into your top 12 immediately if we know they're the guy? Dwayne, you can go first.
Yeah, I would be willing to, just because, now Conner will be 27 going into next season. So that's not like he won't be 28, 29. And to be fair, like he doesn't have an overwhelming workload, like on his resume. It's a decent size workload, but we've seen the huge spikes with him this year, right? Whenever it's really just been him. Like week 9, Chase Edmonds played, but he was pretty much knocked out like right at the beginning of the game. He finished as the RB1, then it was RB17 the next week without Edmonds, 7 without Edmonds, 12 without Edmonds, 2. So it'd be hard to ignore that, right? And then in week 18, he had an RB1 overall finish with Chase Edmonds out. So I think just looking back at that and knowing how they did get him more involved in the passing game, which was really the unknown for Connor, was how would they use him in the passing game, knowing that they like Chase Edmonds as the passing back. And so once he had that opportunity to really show like that skill set, that really, I mean, my thoughts around Connor and the way I approached him in my ranks really went up once I saw like how well he played in the passing game and that they, to your point, Ian, were willing to use him despite having a scrambling quarterback. So yeah, if it's Connor, that's the only guy there, I would be willing to take a shot at him somewhere around like that borderline RB1. I'm still going to put him lower than some of the other guys that are a little younger. We maybe like their talent profile a little bit more, but look, volume is king. And I think Connor has shown enough. For Edmonds, even if it was just him, my guess is like they have to sign a complimentary person for him, like would be my guess. So I don't see that scenario probably playing out. Let's say they did just go into next season though, and it's Edmonds and like Eno Benjamin and Jonathan Ward or whoever else is there. Nathan, you can help me out. That's pretty much the guy.
That was on the top 3.
So I don't know. I would still have him outside my top 12, but look, I would know that there was a chance like he could come through on the volume. My worry with Edmonds is every time they've given him a heavier workload, he just hasn't been able to stay healthy.
It is crazy how they are willing to go back to that wall when they need to, though. Week 16, 92% snaps. Week 17, 81%, had a combined 34 carries in those 2 games. Nathan, again, you have Carter RB12. After that, it's kind of like a situation where we need to see what happens. You have Fournette RB13, Mitchell RB14, DeAndre Swift RB15. Are you in a similar kind of position as Dwayne, where if it is kind of dumbed down for us and we only have one Cardinal guy to worry about, he'll be right there in that mix?
Oh, yeah, I think he'll be right around there. I do trust Connor a little bit more just because I trust him with the goal line carries where Chase Edmonds, whenever he got the ball in the red zone within the 5-yard line, didn't do all that great. So I trust Connor a bit more because of his ability to score touchdowns. So that's the main thing. I do hope they get Rondale Moore a little involved in the run game next year. I expect him to have a bigger role. So if they don't get another guy, I think that's a possibility. And then I could see the Cardinals just in general maybe not having as good of an offense or not playing as well just because they have, I think, 7 guys in our top 100 free agents, and they really don't have a ton of cap space to play with. So I definitely would not be surprised if we reach a scenario where it's one of these 2 guys and maybe a late round draft pick.
I have an idea. Let's let Rondale Moore run a route beyond like better than -2 yards.
Oh, like the few times they've thrown downfield, he's made some sick catches too. Like this was.
I couldn't tell if Kyler was targeting him yesterday or Christian Kirk on one of those plays, but Moore was at least in the vicinity. So I'm going to pretend they were actually trying to give Rondale Moore a downfield target.
Like, please, what'd you use a 2nd-round pick on the guy then for? I guess that's just, Cliff's like weird little fetish. He just likes wasting.
People do make fun of Cliff for that. Like he's very much like he's got these very specific roles for everyone. So like he does catch a lot of heat for that. It's like DeAndre Hopkins ISO. You got your screen guy and Rondale Moore or Dortch, right? Then you've got your slot guy like Kirk. So we'll see.
All right, guys, enough running back chit chat. Let's talk favorite late round QB. So over the past 4 seasons, there's usually been at least one per year that has just really exploded on the scene. That has been available for pretty cheap. I mean, Patrick Mahomes in 2018, before he dominated, he was just a QB 16 in ADP before the season. The next year, Lamar Jackson was QB 14. Going into 2021, Joe Burrow QB 13, Jalen Hurts QB 12. Like we had available late round options that ultimately returned solid QB1 value. Looking at your guys' ranks, the one I just immediately have my eyes focus on, and I understand rankings aren't necessarily going to represent ADP, but it's what we got right now. So chill out, everyone. But with that in mind, guys got Justin Fields, QB 14. Dwayne, I believe that's you, and Nathan, you're a little bit softer on him, QB 19. That's the one that sticks out to me, where if I am not going to take a quarterback in the first 9-10 rounds, Justin Fields would be the guy I would like to try to gamble on at the end. How do you guys feel about that? Or is there another quarterback outside your top 12 that you think is most likely to be able to return, again, that late round QB1 value?
Yeah. So for me with Fields, it's pretty simple. Like in the games so if you look at the last 4 games that he's actually completed, we'll throw week 11 out, right? Because he got hurt and then he missed the next 2 games. He didn't get to finish that game. But he's got finishes of 3, 9, 8, and 10. And so he's got the recipe we're looking for, which is he's got the ability to run. He was definitely slow. Justin Fields took way too long to read things. Average time to throw is too long. Sack rates are too high, all those things. But we've seen those before, right? With young quarterbacks that like to run the ball. And you don't necessarily have to be a great NFL quarterback. And not saying that Fields won't be. I think Fields is going to get a chance to really grow and show more next year, even as an NFL quarterback. But for fantasy, really, as long as we know that he's going to run the ball, like you guys have seen Taysom Hill, Justin Fields throws the ball better than Taysom Hill. So let's at least just start there. And Ian, you and I have talked how many times about Taysom Hill? Look, when he's the starter, it is what it is. He's a top 10 guy. He's going to be in the top 10. So I just feel like Justin Fields, as long as he's healthy, he's going to be in the top 10. And then on top of that, let's see who he gets. Hopefully they bring in someone that has a good offensive mind, that knows how to work with a young quarterback. Because let's be honest, Matt Nagy did not do any favors to Justin Fields this season. Just the way that he really kind of didn't want to utilize his strengths early in the year just to really get him in a rhythm or anything like that. And so I'm looking for the next coaching staff to do more with Fields. So I think he's the easy one. The other one that's got a huge range of outcomes, and back to Nathan's point earlier, we really just have to wait and see what's going to happen. But the problem is with this one, once we know, the price will skyrocket, and that's Desean Watson, right? If you look at most experts right now, they're going to have him outside their top 12. But it's just because we're waiting on the information. And I'm not a legal expert, and I'm not condoning anything that Desean Watson did. But all I'm going to say is if he's out for 4, let's say the NFL suspends him 4 games, right? He's already missed this year, even though he got paid. But let's say they suspend him 4 games. I think he's still going to probably be somebody he needs to be drafted every draft. If you start getting in the 6, 8, 10 game range, who knows how they'll exactly handle it. Then, it gets a little bit more slippery, but and it also depends, where's he going to land? What team is Desean Watson going to be on? We don't know, but that's kind of an easy one. We've all seen Desean Watson be a top 3 quarterback before. So I would expect him to return to that once he is on the field.
Absolutely. Yeah. That Watson situation. I threw out there on Twitter, Desean Watson and Will Fuller to Philly. Who says no? And Nathan had to ruin my fun and point out how it'd be fun for the 2 games they're together. Thanks, Nathan. I try to go on Twitter to have some fun. You're just ripping out some of my hopes and dreams. Back to the Justin Fields thing, though, because truly, putting it on Nagy, on the pass catchers, on Fields himself, it all comes to fruition. But at the end of the day, league low, 38.9% of their pass catchers being considered open or wide open during the 2021-2022 season just didn't have much of a chance for success. Nathan, on the one hand, like Dwayne said, you would hope that just by virtue of adding a different play caller and maybe getting some additional receivers that would improve. But we also I feel a lot better if they were starting at 16th and not, 32. So thoughts on kind of Justin Fields ahead of next year. And if it's not Fields for you, what late round quarterback do you think could be a nice target for us in drafts?
Yeah, I do think Fields is a great late round target. I do think he does need a lot more help at receiver. He had Darnell Mooney, and that was about it. A lot of the guys that he was throwing to probably aren't seeing the field for most teams on offense. So they do need a lot of help at wide receiver. Allen Robinson was also there, but he was hurt for a bit end of season. So I think along with the play caller, they need a lot of help on offense. The offensive line can help a little bit more. He wasn't running the ball as much as I hoped he would this year. He's a running quarterback. He runs more than plenty of quarterbacks in the league, but Trey Lance in his first start ran the ball 16 times. And that's something that Lamar Jackson's done a number of times. And barely any other quarterback in the history of the last 40 years has done that. So he's not seeing the number of carries as some of these other running quarterbacks. So that's why he was a little bit lower for me. And obviously a lot can change. The other guy that I'll throw out there that we could, again, see a lot changing is Trevor Lawrence. Hopefully he gets a coaching staff that'll help him out a lot more. Again, he's a quarterback that we're hoping going back to college and how talented he was there. We can hope that'll translate to the NFL. And they do have a bit of talent around him in Jacksonville already. Hopefully they add some more talent as well. But I think there's plenty of good players around him that if Lawrence can become the player that we thought he was a year ago, then that's one of the top tier fantasy quarterback options.
I'm happy you brought up Lawrence. My next question was the quarterback you might have ranked lower than 20th that actually has a chance of, exceeding those expectations. I think he certainly qualifies. And a similar point for Zach Wilson. I mean, I understand how rough those first 3 months were for him, aside from maybe that Titans game. It was really hard to find some good film. 2 of his last 6 starts, though, he did return QB8 finish or better. And some of it's a little, if you want to call that dope 50-yard run, he had fluky, okay, he's probably not going to pull that off again. But at the same time, I think that shows us that he can give us, maybe not Trey Lance level Konami code upside, but at least something. And again, when this is literally where he's probably going to be drafted, someone that you can get as your second quarterback, in the second to last round, you could do worse than someone that was literally drafted in the top 2 just 12 months ago. And as we saw, neither guy had much of a chance down the stretch with all those injuries going on. So Dwayne, we got Lawrence, we got Wilson as potential targets outside the top 20. Is there someone else that you kind of fancy there, or do those seem to be the guys? Because just looking at the crop, a lot of questions about dudes are they even going to have the job for the entire season, let alone be able to do something with it?
Yeah, I don't think there's many. I think you named the right ones. I think it is Lawrence and Wilson. And then we already talked about Fields. We've already moved up out of that group. Everybody's already going nuts over Trey Lance. Nathan, I don't know where you have him, but I've got him inside my top 12. You probably do too, assuming that Garoppolo moves on. We'll have to adapt to that. I guess Wilson, I like Lawrence better, right, as the quarterback prospect, but maybe with Wilson, I do like the fact that he's got Elijah Moore, Corey Davis, if he could stay healthy. I feel like he probably starts off with better weapons. I'm pretty much out on Shenault at this point. Marvin Jones is really getting up there in age. So he's going to start the season with probably a better slate of weapons. We'll see what the Jaguars do with their draft picks and what they do in the offseason to try to give him some more help. Neither one of them are going to go in with the stacked deck, for sure heading into next season. But I feel like Wilson could get into an offense where really they could protect him more, Ian, let it be more around play action, let it be more kind of like what we've seen with Kirk Cousins, with Jimmy G. A lot of these quarterbacks that you can see have these big spike weeks. They play in these games that everything's based off of the run game. Jared Goff used to fit into that conversation. So maybe he could have a season like that where he comes through with several really big spike weeks. Not that they want to be they're not going to want to be a pass heavy team in New York, but right now on paper, I like the weapons better than what Trevor Lawrence has. So they're going to be close. We'll have these two, a lot will be determined by what these two teams do in the offseason to try to help their young quarterbacks.
Say what you want about Shenault, Dwayne. I think that 2027 breakout could be on the way.
Who's the player you're going to name today that we just need to get out of the way for Laviska Shenault to be successful? And you've got a new one. You've already used Tavon Austin. You've already used, Jamal Agnew. Who's next, Ian?
It's going to take another 5-6 years. Talk to me in 2027 before you write them out. That's all I'm saying.
So about as long as it took Laquan Treadwell to break out and be over Laviska Shenault.
Exactly. That's always been the process. Always been the process.
Well, hey, at least he's got a good mentor to look up to. He can go talk to Laquan Treadwell.
My God. Hey, credit to Treadwell. He put on better NFL film this year than he ever had. Hopefully, he stays in the league. Why not? Go freaking get paid to catch a football.
I do awesome. Think he's a player that needs to be schemed up better. I don't think they've really done him a lot of justice, to be fair to the guy. Yeah.
We've, I think, made our listeners' ears bleed enough this year with Laviska Shenault talk. Let's talk some other more appealing wide receivers. You both have Diontae Johnson at wide receiver 9. I love Diontae. You love Diontae. Big Ben loves Diontae. Going into last year, Diontae was right there, I think, with Waddle, Devontae Smith, and then Michael Thomas is my 4 wide receivers I was most above consensus on. So I hear it, but I think Diontae and also Waddle, pending the quarterback and offense change, there's something to be said about high volume receivers that haven't necessarily shown the high level of efficiency to go with it, now entering a new offense. So I know they're on the same team. I know they've been beating out their teammates, but Nathan, what's kind of your concern here for someone like Diontae and Waddle, where again, we've seen them have the fantasy production, and we don't care if it gets there on 150 or 100 targets as long as it's high end. With that said, going from Big Ben to another quarterback, I would imagine that the efficiency is going to improve because it can't get much worse. But how, I guess, when you're doing your target projections, how concerned are you about Deontay's, again, sky-high rates continuing?
Yeah, I think those two situations that you mentioned, that and Weddle, I view those as fairly different situations, just since Pittsburgh will still have the same coaching staff. They'll still have the same offense, just a different quarterback throwing. And even with Mason Rudolph, we've seen in the past, or other quarterbacks when Roethlisberger's been hurt, we've seen wide receivers see double-digit targets, even if they aren't the greatest wide receivers. We've seen Ray McLeod recently see double-digit targets in games. So I think Pittsburgh, regardless of who the quarterback is, will still be an offense that will be running plenty of pass plays, which will result, even if his target share decreases a little, still see plenty of volume to Diontae Johnson. And ideally, it will be a better quarterback situation. Yeah, it could be worse, especially early in the year. It could potentially be a rookie, or if they're stuck with Rudolph. But I do think there are enough free agent quarterback options that they can have someone at least just as good, even if it's a stopgap for their rookie quarterback that they draft. So I could see similar-ish quarterback play, and even if the volume goes down a little bit in terms of target share, I still think he can play. I think he's very talented and will still see plenty of targets.
And like the one potential issue that could rear its head would be like new high-end talent coming into the picture. And maybe that happens, but it sure looks like it's going to be Diontae and Claypool leading the way again with Juju. And our guy, son of the critically acclaimed Fox McCloud, he could also be out of the picture. And James Washington as well. So in Pittsburgh, might not have much of a choice. Dwayne, you have Jalen Waddle, wide receiver 9. I know we've talked about this, or wide receiver 11, excuse me. We've talked about this a little bit already, where Waddle, he could be someone where we just haven't even seen the ceiling that he still possesses. How do you balance that out with, hey, having this guy, number 6 overall pick, he just had, one of the more productive rookie seasons ever. But who knows if we do see Fuller come back and Devontae Parker come back and we see an offense that really didn't have its full health all year, how confident are you, again, now buying Waddle at his ceiling as opposed to his floor where we got him last year?
Well, with Waddle, like just having such huge draft capital, such draft pedigree, like all these things going for him, and then to do what he's done at such a young age, even though he got to do a lot of it from the slot, I realized that it's not like he worked outside like Jamar Chase and some of these other guys, but I feel like there's also other elements to Waddle's game that we haven't fully got to explore yet, Ian, based on the way they ran the offense. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. If they decide to kick him outside more, I think there's definitely some risk, right? Because then you're going to have to beat press man coverage more. Now, he did fine in that scenario this year. Against man coverage, he had the highest targets per route on the team, still at 25%, which is really good for a rookie. Like Diontae Johnson, the other guy we were just talking about, elite, like is at 30%. Like, so there's a few guys in the league that are just like, as soon as their quarterback sees man coverage, it's going there like a third of the time. So Waddle isn't quite at that, but I think he's shown enough. And just knowing how fast he is, knowing the explosiveness that he carries, I feel like there are other elements of his game that could be unlocked with an improved offense. So it's going to be hard to put him below. And the way I kind of look at some of these things, it's like once you get to Waddle, like fine, you could easily argue T. Higgins goes over Waddle, and that's okay. And you could say CeeDee Lamb goes over Waddle, and that's okay. But then you start getting to like Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Calvin Ridley, Chris Godwin, Terry McLaurin, all guys we like, but I'm going to have a hard time like pushing Waddle, who did what he did as a rookie, like below all those guys. And you start getting into territory where everybody has their own, they've got one thing at least, sticking out to you that you're like, wow, well, that could be a problem. Right. So these will get fine-tuned. They'll get tweaked. Waddle can move down a little bit. I don't think he'll move higher than where I have him right now. This is probably about as high as I could expect to have Waddle, in the ranks. The only thing I will say on Diontae Johnson, like, man, I am very interested in what quarterback they get, because the way Diontae Johnson wins really is on timing routes, preciseness of route running, creating separation, those sort of things. Waddle does some of that, but it's also, they'll just scheme it up, right? No receiver sees more targets after being in motion than Jalen Waddle. Now their offense is going to completely change. So that could all be like out the window. That's why there's so many variables here. But with Diontae, like, even though he does continue to get targets from some of these other guys, because he's awesome and he gets open, I do believe receivers earn targets, right? If you're good, you're going to get targets. It's hard to be force-fed targets over and over and over if you're not good enough to be open and make, really create positive outcomes for your quarterback. They're not going to keep going to you. So with Diontae, though, I do believe, because he's not a downfield going to beat you over the top guy, he's not a contested catch guy. So he is super good, like, at the way he wins. And it's very Antonio Brown-esque. Like, it's crazy, like how those Steelers find these guys So he can pretty much beat any coverage, but he does need a quarterback that can get the ball out on time with accuracy. And that's a big part of his game. So I'm very interested to see who the quarterback's going to be in Pittsburgh.
Waddle might have the biggest ADP difference when it's all said and done between August last year and August this year. Yeah. We'll see, though. Might be warranted. Guy sure was pretty great with it. Just, again, want to make sure that if we are going to be, making that increase, we want to be confident in the role. But now, Dwayne, I think what you said about once you go down the list, okay, maybe 3 or 4 wide receivers you could bump ahead. After that, though, yeah, I think
it'll be a tier thing. Like all those guys I named with him, I think are in the same tier. So if anyone, like if you or Nathan or whoever listener was like, no, I really want Higgins. I mean, I'm not going to argue over that. I think those guys all belong there together. And they're all young and upcoming names, right? So I think you can make an argument either way.
Gentlemen, 3 more questions. I want to talk a little bit about Josh Palmer, but you know what? We got all offseason to dive into, wide receivers probably ranked outside of most people's top 48 right now. So let's look at some of these potential breakout third-year receivers. Everyone loves Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, T. Higgins already. These guys are going to be consensus top 15 wide receivers by just about anyone. However, we got Michael Pittman, Jerry Jeudy, Brandon Ayuk, Chase Claypool, maybe, just maybe even Gabriel Davis. Guys, Nathan, we'll start with you. Out of these third-year receivers that haven't quite, truly broken out yet, which one could you see joining the Jefferson, Lamb, Higgins tier?
I think Brandon Ayuk's the guy that I would choose out of that group. Nice. I think Trey Lance has a lot to do with that. I think Trey Lance can attack defenses better than Jimmy G could. So I could see that really opening things up for Ayuk in a way that he hasn't been able to do in the offense so far. And even with Jimmy G, he's played a lot better as the season's gone on. Even as a rookie, he had a stretch down late in the season where he was playing at a very high level. So I think if Trey Lance is the quarterback we think he is, Ayuk could be a star in this offense.
When the issue we talked about this 49ers passing game, once everyone got healthy, it was like it's a run-first offense. There's only one ball, between Ayuk, Kittle, and Debo. Someone's probably going to bust. What we really didn't see coming was how willing Kyle was to use Debo as a ball carrier. Was that enough for you to maybe think Ayuk could be this guy, or would you rather side with one of these other third-year breakouts?
I mean, you picked a really good group. Pittman's yards per – I mean, it's a tough group to pick from because Pittman's yards per route run, 1.95, right, borderline on a 2. We know what Pittman's issue is. They just want to run the ball every play, right? But he's shown that he can still earn targets basically as the only guy in the offense. Which can be hard because you know that the other teams are going to be trying to roll that coverage your way. You're going to see more help coverage, which he saw plenty of help coverage this year. And he didn't come through with the year that we had hoped, but a lot of it centered around really the way that the Colts were able to run their offense. And they were leading by 4 or more points they were in the top 5 in the league. And so a lot of things can change. Like the way your game scripts play out can be very different from year to year, even if your record is pretty close as a team. And so I don't think the Colts are going to be able to be in such great game scripts all next season. I still think Jonathan Taylor is obviously going to be awesome, but I think just a small tweak, right? All of a sudden, if, 5% of those, snaps that are leading by 4 or more turn into close scripts. If another 5% turn into trailing scripts, then all of a sudden you get a 10% bump in the way that they're going to use Michael Pittman. So I really do like him. So I think that the argument could be made for him. Jeudy, we know it's really just a Teddy Bridgewater thing, but still, it's like Jeudy, I'm surprised he's even anywhere close to 2 yards per route run. He's at a 1.85. I had to go look it up. I was like, man, I bet he's going to be done at like a 1.4 or something like that. 21% targets per route run was still the best on the Broncos. So when he was on the field,
supposed to be the positive, like you said, the Teddy Bridgewater thing, that was supposed to be the thing that was going to unleash Jeudy. Like that was the most disappointing part.
Then he would check it down to Jeudy. Yeah. So I like Jeudy as well. I think I would put Pittman at the top. I do like Ayuk as well, to Nathan's point, and they love Ayuk against man coverage. Like it's funny, Debo and Kittle get all the zone target looks, but Ayuk's targets per route run jumps up over 26, 27% against man. So anytime they're getting that man look, and to his point, if you've got a quarterback that's willing to uncork it, when you get that out and up and can just lay it out there in front, whereas we see Jimmy G not always want to do that, or be willing to really just, when you get the single ISO coverage, be willing to, just give your receiver a chance to win. I could see that being helpful for Ayuk, but I think the player for me that has shown enough, and I think his situation is most likely to shift just because they were really lucky in their game scripts, is Pittman. But I like all these guys.
And if anyone out of the group is going to be their offense's undisputed number one pass game option, it's definitely Pittman. But to Nathan's point, Ayuk, and I still think Jeudy, if he can be healthy from week 1 on, I think Ayuk and Jeudy are the type of guys where even if they are the 1B, God forbid the 1C, might be good enough to make the most out of slightly limited volume. And as we know, we're more okay taking a volume hit at wide receiver, tight end, as opposed to the ever important running back. But who knows, guys? Maybe Chase Claypool will make a cool contested catch in the preseason and everyone will just completely flip their rankings upside down again, because that literally happened last August. All right, guys, similar question. Now just second-year wideouts. We know Jamar Chase. We know Jalen Waddle. Those guys are, again, going to be tougher to rank outside the top 15, in Chase's case, outside the top 5. Between Devontae Smith, Kadarius Toney, Rashad Bateman, Elijah Moore, Rondale Moore, Josh Palmer, Nico Collins, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Nathan, most likely to be a wide receiver 1. Go.
I'm going to take more of a wild card out of this group. I'll go Rondale Moore. I think everything Arizona has with their free agents, both running backs, both tight ends, Christian Kirk, AJ Green, there is no way that Moore isn't a starter next year, I don't think. I think they have too many holes in the offense that they'll have to fill, some of them with returning players, but they won't be able to bring everyone back. So I could very well see him being the second guy with the second most targets, with one of the best or better quarterbacks in the league, at least. Some of these guys don't have as great of quarterback situations or unknown quarterback situations, as well as guys who are in a bit more run-first offenses. So I think that limits some of their upside. So as talented as a lot of these players are, their situations aren't as good as I think they could be, where I think the potential situation in Arizona where he could see a lot of double-digit target gains is why I like Moore this upcoming year.
One of my best, and to be fair, liquored up takes from last year was saying that Austin Eckler had the role we all still hoped Alvin Kamara had. That could be the case. Rondale Moore, Jalen Waddle. I don't know, Dwayne. I'm sober right now, but after 6-7 beers, we'll see how that goes. Are you with Nathan or Rondale Moore, or could it be a different Moore?
I do love the Rondale Moore call, and I do think that he's going to be one that gets pretty forgotten. Like he's not going to shoot way up draft boards, most likely. I mean, we'll wait and see. We'll see what happens. But like for me, like out of this group, it's going to be Elijah Moore. I mean, just looking at him, 24% targets per route run, tied Jalen Waddle for the highest among rookie receivers, participating in at least 40% of their team's routes. 32% targets per route run against man coverage. Like that's a major alpha trait. Like when you got a quarterback that as soon as they see man coverage, they're just going to you. We see that for all the best receivers. They're all over 30% or right at it. They might be at 29%, somewhere right around there. And to see him doing that at such a young age, like is really, really great. And then if we get the forward momentum with the offense, and think Elijah Moore is a guy like you can do the stuff like what you're doing with Debo. You can get him the ball in the short game, let him run after catch, but he can also get deep. He showed progress as a route runner this season. So, I mean, just in the middle of the season, he started slowly, but when he started the season with a quad injury. But once he got past that, we saw wide receiver 36, wide receiver 26, wide receiver 1, wide receiver 27, wide receiver 3, wide receiver 40, and wide receiver 8. So you're already getting a wide receiver 1, wide receiver 3, wide receiver 8 finishes in a terrible offense like that no one wanted to be a part of. So any kind of advancement by the offense, I think is going to be positive for Moore. And I think he's shown enough that he can be the absolute alpha on his team.
I'm already pissed off at the storylines that are going to come out where people are like, he can't produce with Zach Wilson, but he can with Joe Flacco and Mike White and Josh Johnson. But no, Zach Wilson's going to be
already disproved
the problem here.
Like that was great for the 2 weeks it lasted.
Yeah, the whole 14 days of shelf life we have with that one. Unless we forget, everyone, Keelan Cole is an unrestricted free agent, as is Jamison Crowder, and the engine of the New York Jets offense, Braxton Berrios, not even a guarantee to be back as well, although I could see that with the probably small cap number needed. Final subject, guys. You've both been great. Every summer, I break my heart chasing a late-round tight end or two. 2 years ago, it was Chris Herndon. Last year, it was Adam Troutman and Anthony Ferkser. All throughout the summer months, I don't get a tight end earlier in the draft when I should. I wait until round 13 or 14, and then I take these guys who end up breaking my hearts later, and accordingly, my bank account. I was looking through your guys' rankings. I already see Irv Smith, Tyler Higbee, maybe even Cole Kmet standing out. Which tight end that you have ranked outside your top 12 are you most interested in being this year's late round target? Dwayne, you go first.
I think it's a really interesting offseason for tight end because we have a ton of former first-round picks that are going to change teams, and they could get into a better offense. They could get an upgrade at quarterback. They could get in, with a coordinator just understands how to scheme them up. So you've got Evan Ingram, right, who's a free agent. You got OJ Howard. You got David Njoku. You got Hayden Hurst. All those guys are former first-round picks. So, and we know that tight ends can take longer to develop. We were hearing noise around OJ Howard, not this past season, but the season before, in the preseason before he got injured, and obviously they have Gronk on the team. So I'll be very interested in seeing where all of those players land. But if we're just talking about someone right now, for me, it's probably still Cole Kmet. I mean, he's only age 23. I'm hoping that we get an upgrade in the offensive coordinator. Got a young quarterback that could be getting better. I've got him at tight end 14 right now, but this is one that's going to be really fluid. There's not anyone that I'm just like, oh my gosh, I have to put my stake in it. Last year it was Irv Smith. If we hear that he's really healthy, that could be great. But now we've got a new coordinator. That was all based on having Clint Kubiak there, who was going to really run his dad's offense. And a big part of the offense is play action, getting these athletic tight ends and mismatches versus safeties and linebackers that are worried about their run fits. And so now we don't know. We don't know what that offense is going to look like. So with Irv Smith, he could either move up, or he can move a little bit down the ranks, depending on who we see land there as a coordinator. And then also we don't know for sure what's going to happen with Kirk Cousins, even though he signed. We could see something happen there.
Yeah, the tricky thing with Irv Smith, when all that went down, we actually had Zimmer come out and just say that Conklin was going to basically replace Kyle Rudolph. So might have been a bit of a trap this year with Irv. We didn't get to see it play out, but in a new offense, in a situation where they do value Irv as a superior player, he could definitely be there. And with Kmet, yeah, man, it does look like Jimmy Graham will be out of Chicago. We all know they can't trade him, obviously, but the way his contract is set up, 22 to 2025 are these ridiculous void years that obviously we're sweeping the free agency period last year. Nathan, you in agreement that Cole Kmet might be the guy, or is there someone else you're kind of targeting in that tight end 2 range?
Yeah, I already have Irv Smith back in my top 12 tight end, so I'm already high on him this year. So he doesn't qualify for me answering this question. And like Dwayne said, half the league has their starting tight ends as free agents, so we could see a ton of movement. So that'll change everything. But one guy that I think should be decently stable, Dan Arnold in Jacksonville. We saw games this year where Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence targeted the tight end a ton. First it was James O'Shaughnessy, then they traded for Arnold. Arnold basically immediately, they traded for him and had a Thursday night game, and he was playing that week and already was one of his favorite targets. So I could see Arnold having a big season if Trevor Lawrence is able to play a lot better. But I think as long as Lawrence plays well, I think Arnold's good enough, and we'll see enough targets that he could be that borderline tight end 12 range. But draft a top 5 tight end if you can, though.
Unless, you can predict the future and know that Darren Waller was going to break some of our hearts. Everyone.
There's one guy, Ian. I think there's one guy we just have to talk about, and it's not the receiver. But
let's talk about him.
It's because it's somebody that is very, I don't want to say polarizing, but a lot,
I'm happy you said it, Dwayne. Ogden Tate's an unrestricted free agent, and he is going to change the course of an NFL
That's
franchise.
Exactly who I was talking about. It does start with an A. But Amon-Ra St. Brown, I want to hear Nathan's thoughts on this one, right? Because this is one where you don't have a lot of draft capital. You had a team really without all the other players. So there's a lot of stories you could tell yourself. But again, the way I look at these players, it's one thing just to get targets, somewhat forced to you, but to be able to earn the target shares that he had, I think that's the key word. You have to be good enough to earn part of that. They can try to get you 10% of the targets just to spread things around. When you start seeing 30% target shares, unless it's all underneath stuff against zone coverage, and he was starting to work more down the field. He was working outside, not just inside. Over the last 6 weeks, he played outside a lot more. Still predominantly ran from the slot, but was seeing weeks where he would operate outside 40% of the time. Was beating man coverage, was beating zone coverage. Didn't matter who his quarterback was. The things Amon-Ra St. Brown pulled off over this stretch to end the season and continue to come through. I'm just curious to see, what's Nathan's thoughts, yours too, Ian.
Dwayne, you have Amon-Ra, wide receiver 21. Nathan, a little bit lower, wide receiver 30. How are you balancing that out, Nathan? Yeah, he did ball out. He also balled out when Hawkinson and Swift weren't really as involved.
Yeah, I think, one, those players will get healthy. Two, I think Detroit will have to invest at wide receiver more in the offseason. I think they will add more talent at the position. So I think that'll help the offense in general, but also take away some of those targets. And he did play very well late in the season, so I will definitely give him that. And for a 4th round rookie wide receiver especially, but I think there are more talented wide receivers in the league. I think the quarterback situation probably isn't going to change much, which isn't great for the offense. So there's just too many good wide receivers in the league that it's hard to have him much higher than that for me.
The only problem, I think I might end up somewhere a little more in the middle of you guys, but Josh Reynolds, Khalif Raymond, and Kadero Hodge are all unrestricted free agents. And if we're now going to be looking at a wide receiver room where they bring in some guy making 12 to 15 million per year, and then they use a day one pick on someone that's automatically going to carry higher draft capital than St. Brown, just not sure I'm going to be able to, necessarily get up to him ahead of some of these other guys. But Dwayne, as you bring up, when I start disagreeing with you sometimes, I start listening to wide receivers, we'd be skipping him over, seeing guys like Cooper, Brandon Cooks, Adam Thielen. Once we start getting to those older receivers that aren't necessarily slotted in as their own offense's number one, maybe that's the point where we say, hey, let's trust the talent. And to be fair, Amon-Ra didn't only, earn those targets. He freaking worked as the wide receiver 2 over the final 6 weeks of the year. It was as good of an end of the season as we've really seen since Odell Beckham, which is insane.
It's very rare. We see players get bumps and targets. We do not see them do what he did with it. You just don't see it. Like, he's doing Cooper Kupp stuff like down the stretch. So I'm not saying he's going to be Cooper Kupp, but it definitely catches my eye. And I think he's good enough that I don't really care who they bring in. Like, he's going to demand his own looks. Like, is it going to take him down in target share? Yeah. But at the same time, like, did any of us think that Cooper Kupp would be plus 30% target share this year with Robert Woods and all these other guys on the team? No, there's a lot of good guys on that team too. So I don't know. He definitely has my attention. He could easily get moved down some for all the things that Nathan said. But for me, I feel like, my convictions are strong enough around him that, like, I'm not going to move him that far, down after what I've seen. So I was kind of out on him early on. I was like, okay, this is a blip on the radar. But when he keeps doing it every single week, especially once other teams have had time to adjust and they know their whole offense is Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then he still keeps doing this stuff. And let's be honest, TJ Hawkinson, as much as I loved him going into the season, didn't show us much. DeAndre Swift, who knows if he can even stay on the field because he sucks as a running back. Like, he's really good as a receiver out of the backfield, but he hasn't been that good as far as carrying the ball. So I don't know. I could see a path where Amon-Ra still clearly out targets all of those guys based on what we saw here. But it's going to be one of the more fun ones to talk about, through the offseason.
Some God for sure going to be one of the most polarizing players of the offseason, for better and for worse. What's not polarizing, though? Going to manscaped.com and using code PFF for 20% off and free shipping. Set your first New Year's resolution with good intentions and join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our exclusive offer. Again, that's manscaped.com, and use code PFF for 20% off and free shipping. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code PFF. It's New Year, no pubes in 2022 with Manscaped. Also invite you all to participate in Western and Southern's fantastic competition. They are offering catering up to $2,500. They'll coordinate your order from a restaurant near you and have it delivered on the day of the big game, February 13th, 2022. All you got to do is go enter a question for Chris Collinsworth over at westernsouthern.com/feast. One more time, that's westernsouthern.com/feast. Ask Chris anything. Life without Michaels, life in the NFL, what Dwayne is like, behind the scenes. If he has any idea, we don't care. Just know that you can win up to $2,500 in catering, which, that's pretty freaking awesome. If you're watching on YouTube, check out the link in the description below. Again, that's westernsouthern.com/feast. And remember, with Western Southern, you can rest assured on game day. Gentlemen, that concludes this edition of the episode. Nate, everyone can find you on Twitter at PFF_Nate Jahnke. I'm sure you'll be back on many more times this offseason. People can always find your up-to-date ranks on PFF.com. Dwayne, you are at Dwayne McFarland on Twitter. Dwayne McFarland is your name on Twitter. It's no longer context matters, but context does still matter. Utilization report ranks. You're still grinding. Any final words, gentlemen?
None from me.
God, I go an hour and a half setting you guys up perfect, one after another. We have no issues until now.
Yeah. No, I was just trying to be polite. Nathan doesn't get to be on as much, so I was letting him go first.
Nathan, the floor is yours.
I'll say I'm really excited for this upcoming weekend of games. We should have some great action. We still have all of the good wide receivers still in the playoffs, so should be definitely a fun weekend of fantasy and for football in general.
Dwayne, after you so rudely interrupted Nathan, do you have something you want to say?
No, I feel like I should just not talk anymore. No, it is going to be fun. I put $1,200 into like fantasy over FFPC.
How
but
rich?
I just put for the playoffs. But I determined that really like I was going all or nothing. Like the leverage of the way I was building my lineups, I just wanted to go with Kyler at quarterback on all of mine.
Oh, no.
So the cool news is like $1,200 already gone, like immediately.
Oh man, that's sorry, Dwayne. That sucks. Wasn't trying to end on that.
I knew that was it was part of my strategy. Kyler came in he came in under 5%. And that's what I was looking for. You need, if you have a chance to get different on the quarterback spot, because there's only one. And so I wanted to do that. And then it just opened more things up for the way I wanted to construct the rest of the roster. So, what do they say? Ian, what's your quote? Like, as the wife is leaving you, you're like, the process was right.
Yeah. As your whole family is packing their bags, leaving away. The process was right, though. Well, yeah, I lost all my DFS this week on Kyler Murray as well. So great minds, Dwayne, I guess you could say. All right.
I had a fine Monday night. I don't know about you guys.
God damn it.
Went all in on the Rams.
Oh, my gosh. Freaking Nathan.
You're being more logical, Nate.
Yeah.
We need Nate on here to actually give the good advice, I guess. For Nathan, for Dwayne, I'm Ian. Thanks as always for tuning in, buddy. Until next time, take care.